Hello, welcome back to the For the Doers podcast. Hello, everyone. It's Sayda back with you again on Monday with the wonderful Janice Sadoyama.
Hi guys.
We are back today with so much good things. I'll get right into it as we've spoken before about Ikigai. And I'm going to let Janice speak to it. But before she does, I just want to say this is something that she and I have worked on. This is basically part of what she does in helping people build their brands and really find themselves and find their purpose. This is so incredibly important for anyone who really wants to take themselves to the next level, and not just professionally, but really knowing your purpose and having that wonderful thing that when you wake up, you're like, this is me, this is my purpose, this is who I am. So I'm going to hand it over to Janice. But before I do, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below
Yeah.
on YouTube. Woo, woo. And if you're listening on a podcast, please hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of these wonderful golden nuggets that we're putting out. Take it away, Janice.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. No, I think I discovered Ikigai a couple of years ago and I was like, how does not everybody know about this? Because it's simple and foundational to anything you really honestly want to build, whether it be a brand, a life, a profession, personal development, like everything I feel like roots from this space.
Mhm.
So Ikigai is translated roughly in Japanese to live, which is iki, and gai is the reason. So essentially, it's your reason for being.
Ooh.
Um, and it's meant to create harmony in your life. So merging all the things, and even though we laugh about, there's really no work-life balance. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, correct. There is no work-life balance, but if you
Mhm.
do it right, you don't crave it as much of like, oh, I need a break from my business. Of course, everybody needs to take a break, but you love what you do so much that it then becomes like an extension of you.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and I think we've all been there. Like if you really love your job, or if you really love like a hobby that you have, or something that really lights you up and you feel so excited to be doing that, it's part of your ikigai, it's part of your life system.
Mhm.
So it breaks down into it's, if you can imagine, four circles overlapping one another. Oh,
You
there
see
it
this?
is.
Wait, I I have my
Oh, it's because
blurry
we have the
thing
blur.
on.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm trying to. There it is.
Perfect. And we'll
That's
throw
my original worksheet.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna throw a link too we'll throw a link in the show notes so you can grab
Yes.
your own worksheet too.
Yes.
But the first
Thank you.
quadrant is, what do you love to do? Or what do you love? Like, it's just, it could be a hobby, it could be how you spend your time, it could be reading, it could be music. Like, really be honest about what you genuinely love. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like the honesty factor, right? We talked
Yes.
about how you can go through this worksheet and kind of jot down ideas, but if you really spend the time to be thoughtful about your answers, the stuff that comes out of it's pretty amazing,
Pretty awesome
right?
from experience.
um that's awesome. The second quadrant is, what are you great at? So something, and you might be doing it now, it's your profession, it's your career, it's something that people have told you that you're great at. It doesn't even have to be work related. Like, oh, Sada, you're such a great listener.
Mhm.
You're, we talked about it previously where Julia is such a great writer and storyteller.
Yes.
Like, so
My
all these things
goodness.
where it's, what are you really great at? And the next is, what does the world need?
Woo.
Which is, it's a loaded question, but it's like,
Yes.
right? It's a very loaded
Per-
question,
That's a
but,
perfect way to say it because that's subjective.
mhm. But it's also, and we'll get to it too, but it's also leaning into where your expertise comes into play and how you can support people who need that,
Mm,
people in the world who need that, people like, it's grand to be like, oh, everybody's my audience, but if you get really specific, you'll know exactly who you're speaking to and how you can serve them and how you can provide value and solutions.
amazing.
And then the final circle is, uh what can you be what can you be rewarded for? So, you know if you are pulling work into the mix, it's like, really, what can you be paid for? What can
Right.
you create a profession around? And if you interlock all those circles, and that little center is your happy place, be it your professional job, what you love, what the world needs, it's like that beautiful harmony and synergy that I guarantee will be the place of like fulfillment and excitement, like doing what you
Mhm.
do every day.
That is exactly what it is. It seems so simple, but that can be all aspects of your life, honestly. I mean, for me, that's what it is. I love what you said about, you know, it should feel like an extension of yourself, you know, when you do find that purpose. Yes, we all need rest and we need to, do some, what's that buzzword now that everybody uses? About
Self-care.
self-care. We use it too. Um, but it, you, but it is part of self-care actually to find that purpose so that you don't need to take a vacation from your life
Oh,
because you're
yes.
loving it. You're loving it. You're
Yeah.
loving what you do. You're loving what you get up in the morning to do. Back to you.
No. But it's so true, right? Like, I think we're all kind of in search of that,
Yes.
because we're now told that it's possible, right? Like, it's possible to do.
Yes.
I mean, Sayda's case in point, where it's, she had this idea, and she really listed out and got really clear on what makes her happy and what excites her and what her purpose is and where she can lend support or lean into that area. And before the Doers podcast was born, like, it's
Here we
just,
are.
it doesn't, and the nice thing about it too is it doesn't have to look traditional or conventional by any means.
Mm-hmm.
So, being able to go through these exercises and, answer these questions, like, who's to say that you can't create your dream job? Who's to say that you can't create this brand that really is an extension of you and what makes you happy and excited?
Yes.
I think it's such a great exercise, especially if you've always known that you wanted to do something, but you're not sure
Mm-hmm.
because it's, oh, well, I could do this, or I could do that. I could, maybe I could be a coach. Maybe I could work for somebody. And I think getting really still and honest and writing down like your answers and reflecting, even like coming back to it a couple of days later and like
Yes.
rereading it, it's you'll literally feel something where it's like, oh, it may be, or you'll be like, absolutely, that's
Yes.
like, that feels good.
If
And I think
you're
that's, yeah,
honest.
if you're honest. Yeah.
If you're honest with yourself when you're answering these questions about what you really love and what you really want to do.
Mhm.
The world is teaching us once again with, unfortunately, the events that are happening in Eastern Europe. You don't know what's going to happen. Live your life. get honest with yourself about what you really want.
Mhm.
And Janice is helping show us the way.
No, but it is, it's such a collaborative process of, if you really want to live your most authentic life, what does that look like? And it's like, well, first and foremost, it's about dropping whatever expectation you have that has come from other people, or,
Yes.
maybe an idea of what you should be, how you should be answering. There's no shoulds. It's just, you know, being really completely transparent with yourself. Cause I feel like the more honest you can be, the better the results will be.
Yes. Yes. Because we've spoken about this before about, and the reason I say being honest, being completely honest with yourself, you don't have to love the answers as long as they're honest, because there's so much thrown at us these days, social media, TV, YouTube, whatever you watch, there's so much. And then you always hear people like, oh, I want to live in this type of house and blah, blah, blah. But is that really your idea? Is that really coming from you? Is that really the space, where you would actually feel great about being there? Like, that is really your dream, not your mom and dad's dream, not your friends'
Oof,
dreams,
yeah.
not, people, your favorite influencers' dream. You,
Yeah.
what do you really want? Is this really making you happy? And you don't know that until you face yourself and do that work. It is work,
Mhm.
because mentally you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're, saying, I'm naked. This is exactly who I am, warts and all. This is me.
Mhm.
How is this person moving forward without other people's influence, which is really hard. But I'll let you
No, I
continue with
mean,
that.
and how, and it, and it's impossible too, right? To be completely sheltered from that. Like,
Yeah.
we all consume what's on the web, we all consume what's on social. Um, but I think it's kind of weeding through where you really want to spend your time, and where, what areas really light up your life versus doing the opposite, and kind of recognizing that. And like, okay, it's also, I think part of this exercise too is also really getting clear on what you don't want,
Ooh, yes.
right? Because it's like, oh, in really listing out what I love, it's going to show, it's not going to be apparent what you don't want in your life also. Let me retract that. I sound a little funny. Like, by listing out what you love, you'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of recognize what you don't love. There we go.
Yeah. And I think, we're all so sensitive to the whole positivity or negativity.
Mhm.
I think when it comes to this, which, and by this, I mean, really analyzing yourself. I think what's really important here is you can list out the things you don't want. Sometimes that's what works for some people,
Mhm.
because they might be going through something and that's what's most present in your mind. But then if you start that way with listing out what you don't want, the opposite is what you do want. Not as, not so simply, but
Yeah.
it's not that thing,
Yeah.
not that thing that you don't want. So what is the opposite of that to you? You know, I don't know if I'm making it even more complicated.
No,
Uh,
I think it's like, well, how can I think, coming, depending on where your headspace is,
yes.
it's very easy to be like, I love all these things when you're in that
Mm-hmm.
flow state of like, excitement. But if you're like, ugh, I'm stuck at this job and I hate it.
Yes.
Here's what I don't want. And you go through that
Yes.
list. But then I think too, it's like, well, what does my dream job look like? What does it feel like to, love Sunday nights because Monday is going to be awesome, which
Woo.
right? Oh, I'm excited for the week to start. Mondays are
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
and it's not every week that's great, but I'm like, I looked so forward Sunday last night because I was like, oh, I know I'm going to talk to Sayda. I know we're going to be talking about this
Me
topic that's so
too.
important to us, and that we've,
Yeah.
it's really created a place in our hearts where what like doing that self-reflection, because it's not something that goes away. It's kind of a practice too of like, okay, let's check in. Am I doing the thing that really makes me happy?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and that's where, the honesty with yourself comes in, because with everything getting thrown at us, you might discover something different because you're doing that work,
Yeah.
and discover that actually, why am I? You should be able to answer why you're doing the things, why that's your dream, why that's your dream job. That's hard, because whew, that can change based on what you find out about yourself. So your dream job that you think you want right now, because that's how it always is. I worked in luxury for so long, and I can't tell you how many people always have always said, like, oh, I'm just gonna go hang out with these beautiful bags and beautiful clothes, and talk to people, like I'm sitting all day sipping champagne and hanging out with
Right.
jet setters. No, it doesn't work like that. We all look at other people who we're not in their shoes, um, and have our own perception of what that dream job or that awesome situation is. Um, but you'll never really know what that is until you know who you are.
Yeah. That's huge. That's a fully loaded one too.
You
I
know
had
what I'm
I
saying?
did the exact same worksheet with one of my clients, and she was like, I was like, well, talk to me about like your dream job. And she's like, well, I'd be making like 3 times what I'm making now. And I was like, cool. I was like, all
Wow.
right. Like we're talking. And I love talking about money too, because I feel like it's an energy
Yes,
thing. Like
yes.
why is it so taboo? And I was like, that's awesome. And she's like, but it always came back to like the monetary thing. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, what does that represent to you? And she's like,
Mhm.
it's stability and it's safety and it's like all these other factors. And I was like, how interesting that those attributes that you give to like having a great salary or having benefits is really like the sense of security and being like belonging somewhere.
Mm,
And it's like that right fit. And I'm like, oh, this is where the juicy stuff is,
okay.
because it's arbitrary, right? Like how much you make, depending on like what you make currently, you'd be fine somewhere else. But maybe being in LA or being in New York, it's like that doesn't support that lifestyle or doesn't support like that cost of living. But
Mm-hmm.
if you take away like what the dollar amount is and what that monetary thing gets you, like what does that look like? So it's like, yeah, it's the stability, it's the kind of like the confidence. A lot of times like confidence comes up in this, because
Mm-hmm.
it's, oh, well, I know if I'm at this job title or at this income level, I must be good at my job. So it translates to like wealth and,
That's
or
true.
excuse me, to worth and, ability to do something.
Ooh,
So
I'm
really
glad
dig,
that's,
like dig.
yeah, but that's loaded too, because in a couple of episodes ago with Julia, and she also said, like, that's, outside of what I normally do,
Yeah.
ooh, it's hard to think about, like, what when you ask, what can you be rewarded for? I think
Mhm.
that's loaded for a lot of us.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're so, I think, programmed to think like, you do the job, you get this money, you do the job, you get this money. And
Right.
that's actually putting yourself in a box, because the real challenge, I'm saying that for myself too, my real challenge is, what can I, like, if I say I want to make 3 times, that's my dream, to make 3 times what I make now. I really have to break that down and see what, and be confident, like you said, what is
Mhm.
the value that I'm bringing? Because you can only do that if you know yourself and you know the value that you bring, and you're confident in selling that, because we
Yeah.
all sell.
It's
when
true.
you're when you're when you're looking for a job, you are selling yourself, you are selling the value that you bring to the market. And the hardest thing for many of us, I know for me, as the person who I am, I seem ultra confident, but that's where I'm like, I feel very blessed, to do the things I've done. And again, it's like, when you start talking about finances, it's like, ooh, am I worth
Yeah.
that? Am I really worth that? And you got to, the only way you can say, heck yeah, I'm worth 3 times this, is if you know who you are and the value that you are bringing. And you confidently say, yes, this is who I am. I'm going to bring you this to the
Absolutely.
people who you want to work with. And or whoever you are working for. You can only do that by doing, doesn't have to be Ikigai, even though I think Ikigai is amazing. But you have to do that work to have that confidence, because if not, you're not selling it.
Mhm.
It's work. That dream job is work.
Yeah. The dream life is work too.
Dream life is work,
It's worth
you
it.
know.
You know,
Of course it is, but
it's
why,
worth it.
how can you really do that if you don't know yourself and you don't know where you want to go,
Yeah.
and you're not sure that this is coming from you?
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
No, 100%. And I think a lot of stuff, like we're like sponges, right? Through our entire lives. Like,
Mhm.
it's interesting that you say, like, how do you know that these dreams are yours and not your parents' dreams? It's like, because so much of like our parents' stuff is like projected onto us growing up. Like, you have to follow
Yeah.
this life path, and doing
Mhm.
something different isn't right. And okay, but you know what, I ask my parents this all the time, and it's, well, if you were given the opportunity to do something different back then, wouldn't you have? Like, if you
Yes.
were given the opportunity to do that, like
Yes.
X, Y, and Z, like you felt like you didn't have that choice. Like it was, and more power to them. They were really hardworking people. Like
Mhm.
they, put your head down, you work, you save, you work, you save. But I'm like, if you could do things slightly different, or you had knowledge to do something different, like, would you do something
Mhm.
different?
Yes. Yes.
And I think
Those,
too, it's like
yeah.
getting into like the getting to know yourself. And it's like, it's not a comfortable place for a lot of people,
No.
because it's like, ooh, gotta be honest.
Yeah. Again,
Good,
it's
bad,
like
or ugly,
naked.
let's be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, naked, and you gotta, I think, the work, though, is difficult, but once you do a lot of that work, I think it's an ongoing process. I think for
Totally.
me, I know I'm in a space personally where I know that I'm evolving, and I know that I have to say, this is a lifestyle change,
Yeah.
and this is something that I'm going to work on, and I don't have an expiration date for,
Mhm.
because it's, I'm working on being authentic to me so that I can feel comfortable doing whatever it is that I know I want to do. You know, exercising. I'm exercising 4 times a week now, which is a
Amazing.
lot. I don't know if I'll always be working out 4 times a week, but I know I always will be working out probably at least 3 times a week because
Mhm.
I want to change my lifestyle. And that's the work that I did to find out what I need to do to get there,
Yeah.
you know, to a healthy space, you know, having a mom and dad who were both diabetic and died from, you know, complications from diabetes. Like, I have a choice now if I don't want to be in that space in 20 years. And that's getting real with yourself and saying, I've got 2 roads I can go down now. And knowing yourself, and that comes with experience, that comes with growth. You know, I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's just the experiences that you
Yeah.
have. But living a life that's authentic and no regrets. Um, like what you were saying about your parents, my dad and I had so many conversations like that, which I'm so grateful for before he passed. And, you know, he was like, and I asked him those things too. You know, what do you wish you could have done, or what would you have done differently? Because this guy, you know, I love him so much because he just, without, like you were saying earlier, doing those things without saying, oh, I'm doing Ikigai. He did that on his own because of
Yeah.
his self-worth and self-love and value. He had 5 kids who he was supporting. Luckily, my mom, his wife, could stay home and raise us. But you know, he came and got his high school diploma. He didn't grow up here. He came here as an adult and got his high school diploma at night, you know, while he had all these little kids, and went to school for different things so that he can help his own career. Um, but we talked about, you know, the things that he would have done differently. And he, you know, it was like all of these, I don't want to say that they're not important, but they weren't as, there wasn't as much of a sense of urgency for him to
Mhm.
write a book, which was like
Yeah.
the last thing he felt like he wished he could have done. You
Uh-huh.
know, when he found out about YouTube and I introduced him to that, you know, he was like, oh, I wonder if I can preach on there, you know,
That's
and people
amazing.
can listen to me all over the world. And I'm not sad about it because I love that he had those dreams at 84 years old because he knew himself and he knew the impact that he had on people.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. You
Mhm.
know, he checked off a lot of boxes. Um, and that's how I'm living because I don't want to have regrets. I want to just live that life that, you know, my parents came here for me to be
Yeah.
able to enjoy. You know, I think that that is how we move forward, and move from those dreams that our parents had for us
Yeah.
to being ourselves. And I'm so grateful that I have that I had the luxury of being able to say, actually, I don't want to do that. My dad
Mhm.
wanted me to be a real estate agent. I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know, and at
Yeah.
first I thought when I was 18, I was like, oh yeah, I can see myself driving in my little Mercedes SEL and, you know, showing houses. And then I figured out that's not my dream.
Yeah.
That's not my dream. That was my dad's dream for me. um, but doing the work to know yourself and know what you love to do is
Mhm.
incredibly important for you to know what your dream life is. for
Totally.
you.
And I think it helps, I think it helps prevent that sort of regret cycle,
Yes.
because you're like, no, I'm gonna really sit down and be thoughtful about what makes me happy and how I want to live my life. And I'm going to trek towards that. It's not something that happens overnight. Like you said, it's a practice. It's something that you're going to continue doing. But at the same time, I think when you come from a place of that, like of honesty and authenticity, you're how can you be regretful? Like there's no
Right.
how you can't literally, you cannot feel those two emotions at the same time,
Nope. Nope. And and doing that work, being authentic. I mean, again, I thank you all the time for the work that we have done, because I'm so happy. And it's so much harder for me to get into that downward spiral,
Mhm.
because I know what I want, because I know what I want to accomplish. And I feel like I'm being true to myself. That gives me so much confidence. You know, I don't feel like if someone says something negative against me, it's like, that's your opinion. Like, all you, has
Yeah.
nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I don't have to accept the negativity, because I'm so good with myself.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. And in a sense too, it's so liberating. Like,
It is. That's what it is. It's you're liberating yourself
mhm.
from being bound by, opinions of other people.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. They don't matter. Even if it's, when you get to that point where it's, I don't remember if I heard, who was it that said that? It was probably Naval Ravikant, who I live
Mhm.
for too. Speaking of good or bad, it's other people's opinions.
Mhm.
If someone says, oh, you're so amazing at blah, 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 that's great. Or they say, oh, you're awful at blah, 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 but you know who you are.
Mhm.
Both of those things are the same,
Yep.
because it's someone else's opinion and you don't have to accept it,
Yeah.
because you know the truth. Nobody
Oof.
knows but you.
She's like, and with that,
Boom.
I love it. That's amazing. It's true. And I think if anything, like being at home, or like, through this whole, we're not saying the P word,
No,
but
not
through this
anymore.
whole experience, it's, you know, I do, how do you enjoy spending time with yourself too? You know?
That's the thing. That's the thing. Can you be alone with yourself and be happy?
Mhm.
And wow, like, that's another thing. Like, I think I've always been that type of person, very similar to my dad,
Yeah.
that I always have something going on.
No.
If you want to cancel on me, cool, boo. I got stuff to do. If we have plans and you cancel, I'm always cool, because I have something that I want to do, that I love to do.
Yeah.
And that work, I'll say it again, came from going to the deepest, darkest place and then coming out of it authentically. And
I love
well,
that.
not just authentically, but knowing who I am, and being liberated from the what ifs and the whatabouts,
Mhm.
and you need to do this and you need to do that. No, I dictate that.
Yeah.
I dictate that, because I know who I am. I know what I want. That's why
Yeah.
this Ikigai has been so amazing. And like you said, it's a good thing to go back and look at. Like, I'm going back to look at everything that we did. Wait, when did we start? September?
Yeah,
of
I think.
2021.
Hmm.
Jeez, I feel like I've known you forever because
I
of
know.
the
I love
type of
that. That's the
work.
magic.
You know?
Well, I think too, and I feel like you can think about like the relationships you have too, where it's like if you're able to be honest and like have these deep conversations or talk about the things that mean a lot to you,
Hmm.
you're like, I feel like I've known you my entire lifetime because you share the things that are
Yes.
important to you and that,
Yes.
take up space in your soul and your heart. Like, that's a big deal.
Well, and the other thing I go back to all the time too as I'm sharing is it's the people around you.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
that's key right there because I maybe have less people around me because I have recognized as I am more empowered, I recognize who's good for me and who is not.
Ooh.
And that is so liberating also to not have people. I don't have frenemies.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm sure I did in the past at some point. I mean, I don't even remember when because I protect my space.
Yeah.
Like I said in last, and I got really emotional, when I spoke about that last week because I feel like so many people are hurting right now. And the shifts that are happening in our society are rough right now. I think part of it too is because we are getting to that space where it is kind of it's just not intergenerational, but it is kind of sometimes a generational thing
Mhm.
where, like I said, I am way more liberated than my parents. I chose not to have children, for example.
Yeah.
um they had 5 kids because that's just what they felt they need to do because of their upbringing, you know, their culture, all of that, very family oriented. Not that I'm not family oriented,
Mhm.
but I know myself. I'm not a mom. Um, but I am so incredibly grateful for have that ability to dictate how I want my life to go. I got a lot of pressure. I am Dominican. I'm still asked at 51 years old. Um,
So,
so can you adopt some? Or I'm like, I don't want them. That's just how I answer now because I'm super confident about it, and that's who I am, and that's okay. Go have 5 babies if you want. It's not my thing.
yeah.
Um and having the luxury of saying that, you know, again, I'm so grateful. But again, coming from knowing what I can do, what I can't do, and being realistic, because I
Yeah.
don't want to be a person who has children and regrets it.
Yeah.
Again, if I had children, it wouldn't have been for me.
Yeah.
And that's how I want to live my life authentically. And if there is someone who is a friend who I've had for 20 years or 10 years or 5 years, and that person criticizes me, or as I was speaking to you earlier, I go back and I look at some of the microaggressions that people um yeah that people committed towards me. I don't know if that's the correct word, but I don't need that.
Yeah.
Not saying that I want, oh, you're amazing. I don't care. Just tell me the truth about myself. As a friend,
Mhm.
I know by what you say if you care about me or not. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying is like, why would you have people who bring you down in your space? Why? Let them out And I guarantee you, people will come in. The right people will come in because you love yourself and you're protecting your own energy by having people around you. And that's why I feel like I've known you my whole life, because we were in that same space of let's find this out, let's empower each other, you know, let's make things happen. Um, and wanting the best for each other, and it's obvious.
I love that.
That's what I'm saying to people. And I'll go right into I won't spend too much time on this, but I, you know, with the war in Ukraine and all of that, I don't get super attached to my iPad or phone, but I was this past week because it's like you want to know what's going on. It's a scary situation. That we're all, you know, will impact all of us. You can't say this is not going to impact you. I don't care where you are in the world. This impacts all of us. But of course, you know, I love getting on Twitter, reading the drama in third person, just being the watcher. And I was telling Janice that I saw this thing about Meghan Markle and I don't know, Duke of, I don't remember. I'm not British. I don't personally have a queen. At least not at least not a traditional one. But I haven't paid attention. I saw a little bit of the Oprah interview. I don't spend a lot of time on things I'm not really invested in. I'm not trying to be holier than thou. But you know what I did hear that Meghan Markle said was, you know, something about all of the comments and how she became suicidal because of a lot of the hate that was coming towards her. And I started just reading the comments and I was shocked. I was just, yeah, you know, there's a lot of hate on Twitter. People saying the N-word, like like the racism honestly is driving me crazy for personal reasons, obviously. And my own journey in knowing myself, you know, as a Black woman whose family comes from the Caribbean, which again, Black people are not a monolith. There are a lot of different Black people from all different parts of the world. The diaspora is huge. And just not being okay with racism. And I never let myself respond to people on Twitter. But I was like, no,
until
you know
today.
I know, until you know, I saw this stuff on Saturday night, and then yesterday I just started responding to some people, like if they said something very racist, and I felt that and a lot of it was against Black women. And Meghan Markle is half Black, half white, clearly. But people saying things so hateful and hurtful about someone they don't know. I am positive I don't know any of these people. I'm pretty sure they don't know her. And they have post after post after post. She did this, she wore that dress cost $2,000. And I don't know if that she stole that bracelet from Diana, and like all these crazy things. And is that her real hair? And she's only copying Kate. And I was just like, how? And I asked some people, like, how are you spewing so much hate at somebody you don't know? And some of the replies were like, well, she did this and she did that and blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, whew, that is so much energy in someone you don't know. I will keep saying that because you don't know her and you're spending all this energy. One of the ladies that replied to me replied with a freaking book. And I'm like, can you imagine if this lady, and a lot of these women were middle-aged or older, which is so sad to me, because if she spent that time, the particular lady that replied to me with all of these things, if she spent that time on something constructive, being a role model to other people, it would actually help her as much as it would help someone else, instead of spewing all this hate that you're getting one like from, or even 15 likes or 20 likes. It's like, I don't know if that's why they're doing. I don't get it. Yeah. And when I don't get something, I dive in because I want to understand. But again, I don't dive in for too long. I gave it 48 hours. And after that last response, I was like, okay, not going to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. But I feel the hurt coming from these people, because if you love yourself and you know yourself, there's no way you can spit that stuff out. So much of it, and spend so much time hating somebody you don't know. What the heck?
Yeah.
That's hurt.
Obsessing on tearing somebody else's character down.
Exactly. Let me tear her down. This is my hobby, is tearing her down. Whoa. Yeah. One even wished cancer on someone else who they were going back and forth with. And then in her profile, it's cancer survivor. What are we doing to ourselves? And that's why I think personally, this type of work is so important too, because if you love yourself, you know where you're going, you don't have the time for that. You won't do that work and face yourself, because I think that's part of, like, some people don't think that they can change their own lives for whatever reason, and they're manipulated by someone else's narrative, and they love, I guess, knowing, not knowing, I'm sorry, they love feeling like they're part of something, but it's something so negative it will not last. Yeah. Everything goes in cycles. And love yourself, people. You get on and you're like, would you say that in person to someone? Would you spew that hate to someone in person? And if you can't look in the mirror and be like, I have so much love for myself and I really want to empower myself and build myself up, if you think that way, you can't go back and do that. That's why I think these types of exercises are so important. It will change your life, because you'll start to really do that hard work, look at yourself, and liberate yourself from being manipulated by someone else's narrative. It's not yours. That hate just comes right back and smacks you in the face in some way. That's life.
Yeah.
Karma's real. It doesn't always come right away, but you're hurting yourself. And with all of the energy that's unknown and so much insecurity, which honestly, that's where a lot of that stuff comes from. Don't empower that. Who knows what you can do with all that time that you're sitting there? I sat there for hours, not just on that, but definitely for 2 hours at least, going back and forth with a couple of people. And I'll still reply to them because, again, I'm open. I want to have a conversation, not to change your mind, but actually to edify myself. and know where people are coming from, because I love it. I love messing with people too and arguing. Only if they come to me with hate again, because I know who I am. I am only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anyone else.
Yeah.
And I am empowered to say, no, I don't have
Not
to
for me.
accept your nonsense.
Mhm.
And even if, I want to say this and I had to get it off my chest, because I went down into that rabbit hole of negativity for, I really spun about it for 48 hours, because it's like, of course, again, the racism, like, why in this day and age? And I honestly think there are a lot of people that said things that were really racist without realizing that they're racist. This is just how they grew up. We don't make up these things ourselves. We get it from somebody. Someone put that in our head. And this comes back to, are you living your dreams? Are you living your narrative? Are you creating the narrative that tells the world who you are? Not who your mom was or your dad or what school you went to, or, I love the queen. All save, what did they say? God save the queen. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm just still a little shook by putting stuff out there that hurts other people. That's, I get it when people get online and get depressed. This is like a lot of people contributing to that. But if you face yourself and do the hard work, because maybe, a lot of people are projecting and not wanting to do the work for themselves. So they rather take the easy way and say, I'm just going to criticize somebody who doesn't even know me on my computer, because I don't want to think about myself. I don't want to do that hard work. It's hard. Mic drop.
It is. It's good work though. And I think the nice thing about it is whenever you feel like the time is right, or you've decided that you wanted to do that work,
Mhm.
it's not, you're not too late. It's like the perfect timing when you're like ready for it and you are
That's
curious about it and you're like, all right, cool. Like now's the time.
Yes.
Which I think is like the fun part, because once you're in that flow of like, let's make something happen, or let me get curious about that, or I want to learn more about this, I think that's when you really start digging your heels in,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's like tethered to something bigger.
My point. You always are great at giving my point exactly. It's like the hateful comments that you can spew online are the symptom of something way bigger, and I might be presumptuous in saying, it's you hate yourself, but there's something in you, because you're the one spewing it out. We're all human beings, and we are connected. I do believe that we are connected. We impact each other, we influence each other. And if you know that you're hurting someone, and you never know what that other person has been through, um, you don't have to spew that hate at people, because the main one that you're hurting is yourself. And you're deflecting from yourself, because there's something in you that needs to be looked at if you're putting that out there. That's all
And
I'm
I
saying.
think too, on like the flip side of it is like, hey, you know what? If you want to be a positive force, what does that look like? Like opening the doors to have a
Ooh,
conversation and being like, oh, let's talk about this. Or
yes.
did you see like putting more good out there too. Like,
Yes.
really leaning into more of the stuff that like makes you happy and you're excited
Yes.
about. And it's not to say that everything's always sunshine and rainbows,
It's
but
not.
it's well, what are positive things we can do? What's like going to move this ball in a better direction?
Yes.
And making that decision, which I love what you say. You're like, hey, like I'll be honest, like I went through this spiral, but I don't stay there long because you're like, I
Well,
have things to do. I
yeah.
have better things to like. I
You
want to,
know,
I want to use my time in a positive and productive space. So it's like, yeah, we're all human. We're all do it, but
yeah.
it's like being able to switch that off and move. What's a better place? What's a better use of my time?
Well, recognizing it,
Mhm.
recognizing it is what I do, and I've always, well, not always, I've done that for I don't know how many years. Is like if something is bugging me, and I give it 48 hours. 48 hours. I want to know what it's all about. I want to know what it's about for me. That's the so-called selfish part, because that means I have work to do. If something's triggering me, I
Yeah.
have work to do. What is it that it's triggering in me? Why am I so impacted by someone else's words? And that again goes back to knowing yourself and knowing why you're doing things. Um, yeah, yeah. So on that note, I love that conversation. And this is again something that we will always continue to talk about, because it always comes back to ourselves, how we feel about ourselves. It comes out in what we're putting out there. I'm super sensitive, obviously, to people who have or are, anxious or depressed. Um, and of course, this is for the doers. Doers come in all different shapes, sizes, forms, experiences. I'm just speaking to my personal experience. Um, and I am incredibly a sarcastic person. That's kind of my, my sense of humor is very sarcastic. Um, but I do think about what I say to people. So if I said something to you that was harsh, I meant it. I'm here to say I meant it. I can change my mind, but I'm always open to a dialogue, because I want to just go to bed at night and be like, I love you, Sayda. You're amazing.
Right? Rest easy.
Rest easy and be happy and dig into the things that I love, because I've done the work.
I love that.
So thank you, Janice. You're fantastic. So once again, we'll post um, a link.
Yeah. So the worksheet. So it's a downloadable worksheet. You can print it out, you can read it and put it in your journal and work through it. Spend some time and work through it.
I love that. Put it in your journal and work through it. And the other thing, too, that I wanted to say about that is we'll put the link, we'll post the link, and you'll see Janice also explain a little bit more about Ikigai. But I would like to invite anyone who's listening, if they've done their worksheet and they want to have a conversation with us on the podcast about their worksheet, and have Janice sprinkle a little fairy dust for them and share with everybody else in the community, what they have, um, what they have gotten from the worksheet, and how it has helped them, or how it will help them, or if you have questions on how you want to move forward, or have questions, need advice, whatever it is. We would love to have you on the
Yeah.
podcast if you would love to share. Um, the Ikigai, your Ikigai worksheet, and work on it a little bit with us.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I can't wait um, to see who wants to show up and hang out and
I
do
love it.
some fun personal development and professional work to empower yourself. Thank you, Janice. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you, Sayda.
much. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Thank you so much for your time. We love talking to you. We hope we're having a positive impact on your life, even if it's for the time that you're here, hoping that you take some of this positivity and knowledge throughout your day. And don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked it. If not, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the love. I appreciate you. It's all about you. Please be well. Have an excellent day, everybody, and have a great week. Bye.